This week's Parshat is Parshat Chayei Sara, Tavshin Chayei, and we will begin in Perek Chav Daled, excuse me, chapter 24, Pasuk Aleph, verse 1. Now, our focus is going to be, tonight we'll be reading a lot inside the Pesukim, inside the verses, in order to point out what we want to focus on tonight. All right? So now, let's begin. Va'avraham Zakein, Avram became old, Baba Yomim, advanced in years. V'Hashem merachas Avraham b'kol. Hashem blessed Avraham with everything. V'yemer Avraham al avdei zekan be'isai ha'moshe b'chal shaloi. And Avram said to his slave, the elder of his house, who controlled all that was his, Simen yadcha tachas yirechi, place your hand under my thigh. I shall make you swear by Hashem, God of heaven, God of earth. You shall not take a woman for my son, from the daughters of the Canaanites that I live in their midst. But to my land, to my birthplace you shall go. And you shall take a woman for my son, for Yitzchak. So this is where Abraham is sending out, is charging his servant, his slave, whose name was Eliezer, to go find a wife for his son Yitzchak, not to take from the local Canaanites, but to go to his birthplace, to take a woman from there. Now, the Torah does not say, and Abraham said in Pasuk Beis in verse 2, the Pasuk does not say that Abraham said to Eliezer. It just says to Avdai, his servant. Okay? Now, keep that in mind. Next, Pasuk Hey. Verse 5. And the servant said to him, perhaps the woman will not want to come, will not agree to come, or want to come after me to this land. Shall take your son back to the place, to this land that you came from. Hashem said to Abraham, do not bring my son, do not take my son there. Hashem, God of the heavens, that took me from the house of my father, and from the land of my birthplace, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your children I shall give this land. He shall send his angel before you, and you shall take a woman, a wife, for my son from there. And if the woman will not want to follow after you, then you shall then be free from this oath that I make you, from this oath that I'm making you make. Only my son, do not bring him there. Okay, so Eliezer says, maybe she won't want to come here. Should I bring your son there? Avram says, absolutely not. Next pasuk, and the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Avram, his master, and he swore to him over this manner. Okay, who now swore to Abraham? Ha'eved, the servant. So right now, Eliezer is being referred to as Eved, the servant, right? Next. And the servant took 10 camels from the camels of his master, and he went with all the riches of his master in his hand. And he got up and he went to Aram Narayim, the city of Nachar. He went to Abraham, told him to go. All right. Now, the next psukim say that he brought his camels to a well in the evening when those who draw the water come out to draw water, and that's what he says to Hashem. He says to Hashem, "Do kindness with my master. Behold, I'm going to stand here by the well. The daughters of the city are going to come out to draw water. The young maiden that I will say to her, basically, give me to drink, and she will say, drink, and I'll also give your camels to drink. That's the one that you have chosen for your servant Yitzchak." Right? That was Eliezer's test. Correct? Now, then the pasuk says, and it was. I'm reading. I'm going through translating. And it was, and Vayehi, and it was. He didn't. He had yet to finish speaking, and behold, Rivka came out, who was born to Besuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nachor, the brother of Abraham, with her pitcher on her shoulder. And the young girl was very beautiful. She was a virgin. She went down to the spring. She filled up her jug, her pitcher, her jug, and she came up. All right. Now let's read again. Pasuk Yud Zayin, verse 17. Vayaretz ha'eved likrasa. And the Evan ran to greet her. Do you know why the Evan ran to greet her? Was it only because of the fact that she showed up? So the Medrash says he ran out to greet her, besides for the fact that she was the one to show up. It says that a miracle happened, and instead of her having to go down to draw the water came up to her. So Eliezer realized there's something going on here, and he ran over to her. Vayomer, and he said, give me a little bit of water to drink from your jug. She says, drink, and she gives him to drink. She finishes giving him to drink. She tells him, I'm also going to draw for your camels. Okay, and she hurried, and she brought the water, and she gave to the camels. Now, take a look at Pasuk Chaf Aleph, verse 21. V'ha'ish mishta'ei lo. And the man was astonished at her, or it means he was waiting for her, or watching her. Macharish ladas, being silent, reflecting silently to see. Hayitzliach Hashem darkei imloi. Did Hashem bring success to his way or not? Okay, who's this man?
There's no slave anymore?
Right now, no more. We don't. Right now, he's changed from slave to the man. Okay, now the pasuk then continues. Pasuk Chav Beis, verse 22. V'yikach kilo agamalim lishtais, and it was when the camels finished drinking. V'yikach ha'ish, and the man took a golden nose ring, and he had bracelets, and he gave it to her. The verses continue. He asks her, who is she? And is there where to sleep by her father? She says, I am the daughter of Besuel, the son of Milcah. And she says, yes, there's much food to give to your animals and place to sleep. Pasuk Chavav 26, Vayikaid ha'ish, vayishtachu Hashem. And the man knelt and bowed to Hashem. Number 2, second time, he's called ha'ish. Okay, now, it continues, and it says that he gave thanks to Hashem. And then it says the young girl ran and told her to the house of her mother what happened. And then it says, Pasuk Chavtes, Rivka Shmei Lavan. Rivka had a brother, his name was Lavan. Vayaretz Lavan el ha'ish, hachutz el ha'ayin. And Lavan ran to the man outside by the spring. And it says when he saw the bracelets and the nose ring on his sister, and he heard her say, I should have read this pasuk. The man spoke to me in the following way. Vayavoy el ha'ish, and it says Lavan came to the man, and he was standing with his camels by the spring. And Lavan, the next pasuk, invites him in. Pasuk Lamed Beis, Vayavoy ha'ish habaisa. Verse 32. The man came to the house, and he gave his animals to drink. They put food in front of him to drink. Put food in front of him to eat. And he says, I'm not gonna eat until I speak. And he goes through the whole story again. Now he identifies himself in Pasuk Lamed Daled, verse 34. Vayamar Eved Avraham Anochi. He identifies himself as the servant of Abraham, and he talks about how Abraham was blessed with riches. His wife gave birth to a son. He didn't want me to take a wife from the locals, but to go back to my birthplace, to my family. And he repeats, maybe the woman's not going to come. And he didn't let me take. He told me not to take his son there. I came to the spring. He tells the whole story over again as to what happens. And eventually he says, and this is on Pasuk Memtes 49, now, if you are ready to do kindness and truth with my master, let me know. And if not, tell me. Okay? And what happens? And Lavan responds and says, this matter has come from Hashem. There's nothing for us to say. Behold, Rivka is before you. Take her, and she shall be a wife to the son of your master, as Hashem spoke. Pasuk Nun Beis, Vahi kasher shama eved Avraham es divrehem. Verse 52. And it was when the servant of Avram heard their words, Vaishtacho artzel Hashem, he bowed down to God. Next verse, Nun Gimel 53. Vayetzei ha'eved kli chasav v'kli zav. And the servant took out all these gifts, gave to Rivka, gave to her brother and to her mother, right? And they slept over. The next day he says, I want to go back, and don't delay me. And they said, okay. All right. So now, you get the point. What we're trying to get here. Eliezer first starts off being described as ha'eved, the slave, the servant. Then he starts becoming known as the man. And then he reverts back to the slave, to the servant. What is this change? What's going on? So the Rabbeinu Bachya says like this. Now for this, we got to turn back a few pages, go back a number of verses. Back to Pasuk Tesvav, verse 15. Okay? Now this explanation by the Rabbeinu Bachya is going to be very interesting. It's a very unique way of interpreting what's going on here. So Pasuk Tesvav, that's after Eliezer goes ahead and says to Hashem, this is the test. I'm going to ask her to have a drink. She's going to say, you drink, and I'll give your camels to drink. Now, Pasuk Tesvav, Vayehi hu terem kil ledaber. And it was he had not yet finished speaking, v'nei Rivka yoitzeis, and behold, Rivka came out. So the Torah tells us Eliezer didn't even finish speaking to Hashem, and who came out? Rivka came out. Says the Rabbeinu Bachya, look at this Pasuk Tesvav, verse 15 again. You got it? Now in Hebrew it reads, Vayehi hu terem kil ledaber, and it was he had not yet finished speaking. This word, the second word in the verse, who, which means he, is extra, superfluous. In the grammar of the Chumash, it doesn't have to say that word he. It could have just said, Vayehi terem kil ledaber. And it was when he had not yet finished speaking, and behold, Rivka came. You don't need that pronoun of he. What's it doing there? It's extra word. Says Rabbeinu Bachya, and this is where you gotta. This is a very unique approach. The word who, which means he, in the simple interpretation, it's going on Eliezer. But the word who, says Rabbeinu Bachya, can also mean Hashem. Because we find places in the Torah where the word who is Hashem is referred to as who, as he. So even though in that context you could just say it's just, referring to Hashem and just not saying Hashem's name, saying he. But if the word who is used for Hashem, that means the word who can be used to refer to Hashem. So Vayehi hu terem kila, you have to read it like this. Vayehi hu. And Vayehi hu. He was. Who's he? Hashem. Vayehi hu means Hashem was. That means Hashem was present. Hashem now was present here at the well. And he was present, terem kilo ledaber, even before Eliezer had finished speaking. Now, we know Hashem is everywhere, right? What's exactly the point here of saying Hashem was here? Which means Hashem's presence was here to guide, to get involved. Says the Rabbeinu Bachya, when this comes from this idea that Hashem being present, look back at Pasuk Zion, verse 7, where Avram says to Eliezer, Hashem Elohekei Hashemayim asher shalachani mibeis avi be'eretz meladati. Hashem, the God of heaven, who took me from the house of my father and from my birthland, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying that I will give to your children, I will give this land. Hu yishlach malachai lefanecha. He shall send his angel before you. Avram told Eliezer, Hashem will send an angel to help you. And that is what referring to he. Vayehi hu, Hashem was. Hashem was present. What does it mean Hashem was present? The malach that Avraham said will be there to help Eliezer, the malach now became present. And the malach now would now get involved in making the process happen. And what happens? So again, Vayihu and Hashem, meaning represented by the angel, was there before he finished speaking. V'nei Rivka yotzes, and behold, Rivka came. Behold, says the Rabbeinu Bachya, is a way of saying, like, here she is. She's been ready. She's ready. She's been ready. She's right away ready. She's ready. Here she is. Even before he finishes speaking, the Malach is there. And what happens? Rivka shows up even before he finishes speaking, because the Malach is making things happen. Okay. So now she shows up, and Eliezer, and as we said before, the Medrash says, Eliezer saw the water rise up to her. And he goes over and he asks her for a drink. And she gives him to drink, and then she hurries and she gives his camels to drink. Pasuk Chav Aleph, verse 21 is the first time where Eliezer is called Ha'ish, the man. Why is he called the Ish, the man? Because Eliezer now is starting to realize that Avraham's promise is being fulfilled. Eliezer sees Rivka show up, and Eliezer runs over to her because he sees the waters rise, and he asks her to do what he makes the request, which is the sign, and she's fulfilling the sign. At this point, says Rabbeinu Bachya, Eliezer is now focused and realizing, do you know what's happening here? What's happening here is the Malach, the angel that Avraham said is going to come and help. He's here. He's making it happen. This is what Eliezer is focused on. And when it says V'ha'ish mishtoila, and the man was waiting, was astonished at her, we're waiting to see what's happening. What's Eliezer thinking about, says Rabbeinu Bachya? He's thinking about the fact that the angel is here. The angel is making it happen. So you know why here he's called V'ha'ish? Because the word ish can also refer to a angel. There are places in the Torah where an angel is called ish, a person, because the angel appears as a person. Now here, that's not what's happening. But the fact that the word ish can be used to refer to an angel means here that now Eliezer is called ish. He's called the man. Because now that Eliezer is focused and realizing that the angel is here making things happen, now we call him ha'ish. We call him, so to speak, the man angel. We identify him now as ish. We identify him with the angel that he realizes is present. And therefore, now we don't call him the servant anymore. We call him the man. We refer to him with the name of with a word that can refer to an angel. Because now that he's focused on the angel, that is now how he is identified. And says Rabbeinu Bachya, now for the rest of the time that he's called ish, he's called the man. Why? Because right now, again, Eliezer is not thinking about, good luck. He's not thinking about that he did some good. He did a great idea here. He's not just thinking about the fact that things are happening. He is focused on the fact that the angel that Avraham promised is present and making things happen. And therefore he is referred to as Ha'ish the rest of the time. When it says he took the gifts and he gave it to them, and he went and he gave the gifts to Rivka, and he went to the house of Besuel to talk to them. The whole time, and all these times he's called to Ish because of his focus on the presence of the Malach. Okay, now we got to go back to the pasuk that we read before, where Eliezer is then called the Eved. He's called a servant. That was pasuk Nun Beis, verse 52. Verse 52 follows after Lavan and Besuel both say to Eliezer that here Rivka is meant to be, it's from Hashem that Rivka is meant to be the wife of your master, of your son's master. Here she is. Here is Rivka before you. Take her and go. At that point, the pasuk then refers to Eliezer as Eved, as a servant of Avram. And the servant of Avram took out the gifts and gave to Rivka and to her brother and her mother. Why now do we switch back to Eved? Because the Malach's done. The Malach is done. The Malach, his job is done. Rivka now, Lavan and Besuel have both agreed that Rivka should go to now with Eliezer. That means mission accomplished. Mission accomplished, the angel is gone. Now Eliezer therefore goes back to being called Eved. There's no more focus on the angel. There's no more need to focus on the angel. The angel is finished with its mission. because Lavan and Bethuel have said that you can take her for a wife. And therefore now Eliezer is back to being called a servant. Okay, now we're not done. So it comes out that the next day when Eliezer wants to leave already, they say, can't you stay a little longer? And he says no. And she says, we're going to ask her. So take a look at Nun Zayin, verse 57. And they said, we'll call the young maiden and we'll ask her what she wants to do. They called Rivka, and they said to her, are you going to go with this man? She said, I will go. Man? But didn't we say we're done calling Eliezer the man?
They called him man first time also.
Okay, but again, why? Is there a problem now that we're calling him man? Shouldn't they have said the servant? The answer is, says Ben Bachya, that again, they're talking, right? They're talking to Rivka. So it would not have been respectful for them to say to Rivka, will you go after the slave? That's not a respectful thing to say to her. And therefore, they called him the man. So it's not a contradiction to anything we said before. Before it was the Torah's narrative. The Torah before is what the Torah is calling him. Here is what they're calling him. Why are they calling him a man? Call him a slave. Because that's what he was. The answer is, no, they wanted to refer to him in a respectful manner because they wanted to be respectful to Rivka. Okay. So they went in and they blessed Rivka and she left. All right. One more pasuk we got to do. And the pasuk reads, this is pasuk Samach Aleph, verse 61. Va'atokam Rivka v'na'areiseha, and Rivka and her maidens arose, v'trikavna lagmalim, and they rode on the camels, v'tailachna acharei ha'ish, and they followed after the man. This is the Torah talking. Why is the Torah going back to calling him the man? So here again, Rabbeinu Bachya says it's not a contradiction to what we said. And it's not because the Malach came back, but because, again, the Torah now wants to relate to Rivka in a respectful way. Instead of saying, and she and her maidens went after the slave, they said the man. That would be a more respectful way to that would be a more respectful way to address what's going on at Rivka. But what does it say right after that? And the servant took Rivka and went. Yes, there's a point where we talk about Rivka following and referring to Rivka. We will talk and refer to her in a very respectful way and not call Eliezer the slave, but the man. But right after that, the Torah then tells us from the point of Eliezer, it's the servant, the slave taking, because he's no more called the man. The angel is gone, the angel is done, and therefore he's back to being called the servant. So this is how Rabbeinu Bachya explains this change. And the change is interesting in the sense that as long as the angel is present, and Eliezer is focused on the angel's presence, and understanding that's what's happening here is Hashem's messenger is bringing the success. So he's called the man. He's now called by a name that refers to an angel. We identify him by the angel, which we can say means that the Torah identifies Eliezer with the angel. That means something. That was a change in Eliezer. That means when Eliezer is identified with an angel, that's a level of talking about. It's a level of growth of accomplishment on Eliezer's point. From Eliezer's point, and Eliezer is now focusing on the angel and focusing on Hashem's guidance here. His identity changes. It's a whole different identity because when he is following and realizing and focused. That's what's happening here is Hashem's guiding angel. It's Hashem's hand here. The Torah identifies him with the angel because of the fact that now he is focused and connected with the angel. He's focused and connected with Hashem, and therefore there is a change in him. We call him the man. We actually call him, we're calling him the man because of the angel. Because when he's identified with the angel, when he is focused and connected with the angel and the hand of Hashem guiding what's going on, that makes a change. That makes a spiritual change in him too. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful evening.